In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can use green screen for your Blender scenes. That means you can record yourself on a green screen and bring this footage into Blender, into your 3D environment to bring yourself into any kind of epic environment you want. In today's scene, I made a little tunnel or a pipe where someone is hiding, and I'm gonna bring a green screen character myself in there. Sup you phonies, how's it going? Welcome to another video, and today is gonna be very cool because I'm gonna show you a few cool tips and tricks how you can implement your green screen character into a Blender scene. And let's go. First thing we need to do is, of course, record the green screen. I just did that downstairs, and since my environment takes place in a very wet area, I had to dump my feet into water first, so I get my pants a little wet, so it is a little more realistic. After that, I recorded my green screen. I made sure that it's mostly backlit because that's how my environment looks. Once I got my footage, now it's time to bring it into my computer. So the first thing I usually do is bring it into Premiere. This is where I edit my footage. So now I just go to the right moment where I believe the scene starts, which is here. So I cut out all the unnecessary parts and go through my footage until it cuts out the green screen right here. Now I obviously have to remove my green screen, and a few things to keep in mind. Depending on your scene, you might need to key your feet very well. In my particular case, I'm not going to show my feet. I'm going to be cut off somewhere in this area. That's why my feet themselves are not that important, but if they are, make sure your green screen is evenly lit because those shadows are almost impossible to key out, so keep that in mind. So now I'm ready to key. If you can do that inside of Premiere, also I personally prefer to do that in After Effects. So I hit right click and replace with After Effects composition. That automatically opens After Effects, and then I can key out my footage right there. So now I'm in After Effects, I need to key out my footage. And there's again lots of different ways, but the way which works best for me, especially if you don't have perfect green, I have lots of wrinkles in my green screen, different layers of green, and for that I have a very particular way to do my green screen effect. So in theory, I'm gonna have the same video 2 times on top of each other, okay? And then the top layer I'm just gonna use as a black and white mask, so the bottom layer can use this black and white mask just for the information to remove everything what is black and keep everything what is white. That way I'm not actually going to manipulate the colors on my own body. I'm just going to use the black and white mask to remove the background. I'm going to show you how to do that now. First things first, with Control D I can duplicate my layer, so I have the same video 2 times on top of each other. Here on the far left I can hide my bottom video, which is going to be important for now. Now on the top video I'm going to just like the regular way, right click, Effect, Keying, and Key Light 1.2. Nothing is going to happen yet, but now when I use this tool here and pick some kind of green close to my body, like this one, you can see it already removed most of the background, but it also removed parts of my character, which I obviously don't want. So now, instead of the final result, I want to see screen matte. Now I have this black and white mask I was talking about before. So now I'm gonna try to, under screen matte, to make the blacks blacker and the whites whiter until I don't see any gray areas here, like this. And also under the black, especially in the upper area, like I said earlier, I don't really care about my feet. Just making the blacks blacker until around me there's no gray areas anymore. Awesome. Now of course I can't use this as the final result. Even if I clicked on final result, it looks fine, but it does not look perfect. So what I'm gonna do now is go back to screen matte, and now I'm gonna turn on the bottom layer again. Now here we have the track matte options. And on the track matte, I can select the video on top of it, which is going to use the top layer as a mask. But I need to use Luma Matte selected. So click on this. Now it's actually using the top layer as a mask. So this thing is going to be used to cut out the green from the background. And that's basically all I need. Again, you can see there is not perfect areas here, but I can clean those up in a second, especially the feet. But again, I don't really need the feet, so that is okay. So first of all, let's go back to our top layer and let's work with those settings a little. We can shrink our mask a little bit, like 0.5 usually works. Then we can add screen softness. That's gonna soften out the edges a little. That already works way better. Since I'm working with S-Log footage right now, S-Log 3 to be precise, I'm gonna use an adjustment layer on everything. Go on Effect, Color Correction, and Lumetri Color. That alone is not gonna do much, but here you could adjust the colors until it looks like regular footage. I personally have a LUT I'm gonna use, but just in case you don't have a LUT, you can always check out my tutorial about color grading. This is also where you can get LUTs from for your S-Log footage. But if you don't have that, if you don't have the time for it, you can just do that manually, just like me, until it looks normal. Then also you can see the problems, like the green is reflecting in my gun and in my body and in my skin here and my hair. And now I'm going to show you how to remove that. So go on your bottom layer, because this is going to be my color. My actual color is going to be seen here. So I'm just going to rename it to color. I'm going to rename this to mask. So under my color layer, right click, effect, keying, and advanced spill suppressor. Now you can already see what it does. When I turn it off, you can see the green in my hair and my skin. When I turn it on, it just removes it completely. And that's already perfect. If you need a little extra control, you can go on Ultra and you can actually select the green you want to remove and all that. I'm not going to get into that because the standard way usually works just fine. Now, the last step is, I obviously do not want all this garbage on the side. So to remove that, you guessed it, we need a garbage matte, which is a mask where we draw out everything we don't want out of our scene. I make sure to be precise with that because you don't want any accidents. And once you are in your Blender scene, that suddenly you can see some of the background back in. So make sure to do a thorough job, and now it's all perfectly cut out. Make sure, like here, my butt is still in there, so make sure to be precise with those moments and go through your footage from the beginning to the end. I just turned on my black background because usually you can see a little better. And again, I do see some kind of particles here on the ground, which also got keyed out, but that's not a big problem. All right, just in case, you can feather your mask a little, just 5% or so, and make sure nothing is sticking out. Amazing. Now it's time to export this so it's ready for Blender. One of my followers asked me to show how to render in an image sequence, which can be worth it when you do 3D tracking. We're not going to do 3D tracking in this scene, but I'm still going to show you how to do an export in an image sequence, just in case you're going to need it. So I'm going to go to Composition, Pre-Render. I'm going to make a new folder because an image sequence is going to be lots of frames. So I'm going to call it Green Screen Key Sequence. And now under Custom, just click on Custom AVI, and under Format, use PNG Sequence. And now under RGB, do RGB plus Alpha. And that's all you need to do. But that's very important. If you don't hit that, the background is going to be black, and then this whole thing we just did would be for nothing. So make sure to hit RGB and Alpha. Now you can see this file is going to be called Tunnel Scene Link Comp 1, and in brackets the number, because it's going to be frames from 1 to, I don't know, it's going to be like 400 frames or so. Now when you're ready, hit render. So now that's going to take a minute, but that's basically the foundation of all of your green screen work. So every time you record something in green screen, you have to key it out, and the software almost doesn't matter. You can use After Effects with that, maybe even Premiere, Final Cut, DaVinci is great, or even inside of Blender if you want to go free. So DaVinci and Blender are the free options if you want to do all that for free. I just do that in After Effects because I always use After Effects for my scenes, so I'm the most proficient in it, but you can use whatever you want. Okay, the render is done. Now I'm gonna show you my Blender scene a little. It's very simple really. What I have is, I believe, 3 objects. I have this little tunnel thing here, which is basically, let me isolate this, which is basically just a cylinder with a little bit complexity. There is a rust texture. You can see this is my material here. So I have the regular principled metal BSDF with imperfections in the roughness, and I mixed it with a rust colored texture. You can see this is my gradient node, which makes it possible that the rust starts from the bottom and raises up. And also I have this water texture here, which is not actual real ripples. What I used was a noise texture, an animated noise texture, just moving a little, a color ramp, and that is set into the normal of a principled BSDF, which is metallic, so it looks like rippled water. I'm still not fully done with this scene. After I finish recording this tutorial, I'm gonna finish this scene, give it a little more detail, maybe some plants, some vines, that kind of stuff to make it look better, but you're gonna see the result later. Now we have to place our green screen character into the scene. For that, I have my little character here. I always recommend having a life-size model of a person in your scenes, just so you have something for scale references. So I know this guy is exactly 1.8 meters tall, which is a little shorter than me. So I know my green screen has to be somewhat the same size. Now, how do we bring the green screen character in here? Very simple. What we need to do is turn on a plugin which is installed inside of Blender already. If you want to turn it on, go on Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and what we need is Images as Planes. There it is. Turn this on, save preferences, and now I can use images as planes. So I'm gonna go on here on his feet basically. With Shift right click, I can have my 3D cursor right here. Now I'm gonna Shift A, go to Image, Images as Planes, and now I can go on my green screen key sequence. Make sure to check on Animate Image Sequences. Otherwise, you're just going to import all those images separately. You want it as a sequence, so make sure this is checked on and then hit Images as Planes, Import. Now I have my little green screen character in here, and now the actual model is going to be handy because I can adjust the size, the scale, just like my model, just like that. And you can see I'm in the water, so we can't even see my feet as planned. And now I can just turn off my character here, so I can watch the entire thing, just making sure it works perfectly with grabbing the edge of the tube pipe tunnel thing, so it kind of makes sense. And the cool thing, you can even see the reflections and everything. It looks very organic. But we're not done here yet. There's a few things we need to do. The first thing is I want to track the green screen video to my camera. So wherever the camera is moving, the green screen also going to rotate with the camera. So wherever the camera is going, it rotates with the camera, which is going to help the effect, because obviously this is a two-dimensional video and I don't want to show this from the side. I only want to show it from one direction. So I'm with my green screen selected, I'm going to go on Constraints and add a Track to constraint and select the camera. I'm going to use positive Z, and now it might not make a big difference. If the camera was rotating, you can see how my green screen character is rotating with it. So keep that in mind, it's very useful. Now let's look at the materials of my green screen. We can see it's just a video of 579 frames, meaning our actual renders should also be 579 frames, and also the frame rate should be the same one I used for recording the video. Very important, otherwise you're gonna have some glitches. Okay, let's finalize the lighting a little, because right now the lighting is not the way I want it to be. I want it to be a little moodier. So I'm just gonna use a different HDRI, but something like that looks cool. Now under the material settings, I can maybe increase the roughness. Always looks better if it's not too reflective, but just a little reflective. So it takes like a little bit of the colors of the environment, and that already looks good. But to be fair, I'm making my life very easy right now because it's mostly the silhouette I'm showing. But just in case you do have to manipulate the colors a little more, what you need to do is give it a few extra notes. Like for example, with Shift A in here, you can give it a hue and saturation note. Plug this in between the image texture and the principal volume's base color. And here you can maybe give it a little more saturation or take saturation away. You can change the hue a little, you can make it brighter. Again, it's always good to have your actual character here just for like lighting reference, so you see how he is lit. Right now he's like way brighter than me, so I could adjust it that it kind of looks the same, but you can cheat it a lot too. So just be aware of this. Another pro tip for you: make sure that your lighting and everything is set, even like volume boxes like haze and all that. Make sure everything is done before you fine tune these things. Otherwise you could get into trouble because you have to go back and forth a lot. So if you want to use haze, make sure to do that first. Like right now, I'm gonna make haze. Pro tip for you, if you don't know how to make haze, really fast breakdown how to make haze. You just make a new mesh, a cube, scale it up. Make sure your entire tunnel is in this cube, and your camera tool. Apply the scale, and now you're gonna give it a new material, call it volume. Delete the principal BSDF, give it a volume scatter. Plug this into volume, and isotropy goes to 0.6, and density to whatever you want. Usually 0.1 works fine. 0.05, let's do that. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. You can see the difference. Yeah, it's pretty badass. Now most of this effect is done, but since in the end of the scene I'm shooting inside of this tunnel, I want to show you how you can use images as planes, even for like muzzle flashes and stuff like that. It's a little pro tip if you want to stay tuned. So right now I'm starting to shoot, I think here, frame 313. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go on here where I'm gonna start shooting. I'm gonna put Shift right click, put my 3D cursor here, Shift A, images as planes, and I'm adding a muzzle flare here. The material of the muzzle flare has to be a little different. I'm not gonna use the principal BSDF. I'm gonna use an emission node. Plug this into the color, this into surface, and then I want the start frame to be 313. There you go. As you can see, I have a black background. I don't want this. I'm gonna use the alpha also into a transparent node. I'm gonna mix those two. By the way, if you want to mix two shaders, you hold Control, Shift, and right click and drag from one to the other, and then you're gonna get this mix node, and you're just gonna use the alpha into the factor. Now it's actually gonna be just emissive with the transparent background. And now I'm gonna can turn this up so it's going to be nice and bright, and you can see how nicely it reflects in the environment. Don't go overboard though, because that would go too crazy. Keep it realistic. I might have to animate it because I'm moving while I'm doing this. So on frame 318, that's when I want to start this muzzle flare action. So I'm just going to go here under render, disable and render. I'm going to animate this, go one frame before, turn this off, and keyframe this too. I'm going to do the same thing with disable and viewports. So keyframe this, one frame back, turn this off, keyframe again. Now I'm not going to see it before, but just start shooting when I actually start shooting. So the last step is to animate the position of the muzzle flare. So I just have to animate X and Z. So I'll hover over location, hit I. So I need X and Z, I don't need Y. So I'm going to delete the Y, have them both selected. So while I'm moving the gun, I can hit G and Shift Y, so I can just move it where I actually need it, and hover over the graph editor, hit I, only selected channels, and just go through the entire thing every time I see a muzzle flare, and make sure to make those keyframes, otherwise it's not going to save its progress. Alternatively, you can also turn on auto keyframe. I usually don't do that because I forget to turn it off, but it's really up to you. One more thing I decided to do right before I got done is that since I'm moving into the tunnel in the end, because originally I wasn't planning on showing that, but I kind of like it, so I decided to actually move the green screen plane inside the tunnel the moment I actually start walking. And that results to actually illuminating or removing light from my green screen character, which is kind of cool. But for that, you can't just move the green screen character inside. What you also need to do is scale down or animate the scale down, because my green screen character was also actually moving towards the camera, so he already got bigger. So if I didn't scale it down along the time, then it would just get too big. So I had to compensate for that by scaling my scene down while my character is moving towards the camera. Great, those were the basics for the green screen into Blender effect. I'm still going to continue working on the scene a little, but once everything is done, this is the final result. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and see you in the next video. Toodaloo.